Probably like you, I find myself very busy this time of year. I wake up, I start writing. So this morning I wrote down to be clear or not to be transparent. I was trying to make a play on to be or not to be and transparency. Then didn't want to deal with a poem. I wrote down, I need to know, or do I, why Shana Na, a newly formed retro band that hadn't even had a record yet, was put in Woodstock, the most anti everything in the world. Woodstock, man. And they only got the job because they were recommended by Jimi Hendrix, who closed the show at Woodstock, and Jimmy's friend Shana Na were their opening act, and that was on the Sunday morning at 7:30. Jimi Hendrix took the stage to close it. That's when he was doing 7:30 in the morning. How many people are watching him play the Star Spangled Banner behind his back? So I was determined to look into that. I'll share with you what I found later. I guess I was born not to keep saying we used to have a thing, because I got tired of that. Before there was a period about 4 years where I didn't even act like a Christian. And I don't see how people today go, why don't you go find another wife? Because while I was searching for my wife, I got tired of telling the girls along the way, no, we used to have a thing. That's not the way it should work. What thing was its own type of thing? Different, but kind of the same. What thing? That thing that made you and me. There's that thing between people that make other people. That's the thing that makes babies, that is on people's mind as I slowly grow and keep growing in the Lord. It's a big deal. I get it, but I did not realize that's always what's on their mind. And then I had to go to class. So I'm sitting in my studies of Mexico 362. Was the GEMSTONE file the last grassroots movement? That's what I thought before I went to class. In class, I wrote, what would be the conversation that would lead someone somewhere asking, maybe we should ask our reliable CIA agent, Gloria Steinman, to infiltrate the Playboy Mansion and then start third wave feminism, start calling for everybody to have the pill and women's lib, abortion, the whole thing. That was the CIA. You knew that, right? So that's what came up for me. They asked me what was my opinion, and I said, well, what would lead them to do that in the first place? That they had feminism in Mexico exactly the same time we were doing this in the United States. Everything is a plan. I told them that right in class. I said, what would lead someone somewhere asking, maybe we could use our agent, Gloria Steinman, to write a book and start third wave feminism? What circumstances could lead to that? Then later I wrote down, inflation was the goal all along. We're $40 trillion in debt. There are two ways to pay it back. The United States buckles down, pulls itself up by the bootstraps, and starts saying we're going to live within our budget, or How many wheelbarrows of Reichmark dollars were printed? How many wheelbarrows of Reichmark dollars of, say, $1,000 Reichmarks would it take to go, here's your 40 trillion? Because inflation was their plan all along. I had to go to writing class. Writing class was canceled, and I didn't check my email. The professor canceled 40 minutes before class. I was there sitting down ready to write. Instead, I went and did some visiting with friends in the neighborhood. Having cast my shadow upon the world and my cares upon the Lord, it kinds of feels like cheating. This puzzles me because it shouldn't be like cheating that I know all things work together for good to those who love Christ Jesus. Then I went to my water studies class and I learned about a partial flume. That's how you spell it. Where's my book at? What is with this thing? Oh, it's white. Well, I tried to sketch it. You can measure the water depth of a creek that's yards away with that contraption. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. The Gemstone File. You know, my mom was a Walton, my dad was a Hughes. Both of them were on the southern side of the war. Yeah, I'm a Walton and I'm a Hughes, but we weren't the rich ones, and I'm glad we were well off enough. I don't know what these other guys are doing. I'm having a movie made with. I actually have pictures of myself growing up from my youth to prove I'm not a AI computer. I'm kidding. Did you think I was an AI computer? You did not even a little bit. There you go. There's a not a. This will stop the computers from harassing you. Pictures, anybody? Did we win? I went over this morning. Did you know that Christians have spent the last 50 years dehumanizing the victims of gun violence? Said this girl who was in the David Berg's Children of God. You know him because of the River Phoenix and the other movie stars that were in that pedophilic sex cult. She was one of them, but she's mad about it now. Hey, you know what? You know what? That STEM was started with that 1958 National Defense, the National Defense Education Act of 1958. NASA, DARPA, and STEM. I don't know how I got sucked up into STEM and my daughter and stuff like that. Somehow, I guess they take tests of people and then they put handlers on them and stuff. I didn't know that till recently. So they found the girl that planted the bomb on January 6th, the pipe bomb, I guess that was a false flag too. Who knew? Wow, who knew that a 5'7" girl with a limp would be in a position to be a training counter-terrorist for the cops in Washington, D.C. And I guess it's 94%, 95% accurate. Some of them, I mean, can you believe that? There's a test that can say, hey, that girl wearing the COVID mask is 5'7.5" and walks with a limp. 4 years later, 4.5 years later, oh, there's my friend. We were doing the water studies. That must mean I'm going the wrong way. There's Shanana. Look at Shanana. Jimmy, right before Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, this is pulled up and waiting for you to Let's go to the hop, oh baby. And they are hopping around like YMCA. They had a song as well as a Broadway musical inspired by them. At the Hop was an award-winning documentary film making Sha Na Na nationally famous. They delighted and bewildered the movie Grease, George Lucas's first movie, I think, American Graffiti, and then the star of American Graffiti, the TV show Happy Days, all based on Let's Go to the Hop, oh, baby, oh, to the Hop. Yeah, yeah. So Sha Na Na performed at Woodstock in 1969, pivotal, showcased, unique blend of coma, coma, down, doo down, down. They do not put you into a coma with all that running around doo-wopping. The overview of their performance was at 7:30 a.m. They took the stage for one song that they had practiced the crap out of. Their set, as far as I can tell, was a song. It said a lively mix of 50 hits. If you look it up online, they only show get a job, sha na na, hey, hey, get a job. They said it's a random name. It sounds like it's one of those. I hope I'm not casting a spell. Our volleyball team, the guy that I think is not a good coach, but still wins half his games, lost a set and they had a 10-3 lead. Here's a Division One team. You might have heard of them, the women's volleyball, the midship women, or the midshipmen, the women from there. They almost lost. The other team came back and they barely won 23-25, and that made news. Well, the Grizzlies, they are everything is about inflation and sending the women away from here thinking you don't have a chance. Why even try? The Waterway Experiment Station. I got this. Remember, I only have my free time in between last night's show, this morning's Bible study type show with my big brother, my mentor, the guy that likes the Bible a lot, famous Randy, RJ from, and so this is important. This is a big deal. 1929, it was authorized, fix the Mississippi, keep the water flowing to our favorite city, New Orleans. Had to be built on something else. Let's get a look at it. Big, well, not too much. So I was going to look at it later. These guys did it. John Freeman, credited with reviving interest in hydraulic models, and said, hey, look, we could establish this and keep going and then turn it over to the government and they could just pour money into it until the end of all time. And somebody predicts a hurricane. That was me. Predicted it in 2019 and it a category 5, would build and hit New Orleans and Mississippi would never be the same. That's a risky thing, but thank you, Lord. Didn't want to get stoned to death. First federal hydraulics research facility. It doesn't seem that very long ago. Model of the Illinois was dug with a grapefruit knife. Okay, thanks for that. I stumbled on this. I kept it open. The Veiled Prophet Organization, all male, 1878, promised people from St. Louis, highly select group, Veiled Prophets. It sounds like it's well, there he is. It's Freemason stuff, man. That's what you're going to pull through the streets. in the 1830s. You got nothing better to do with your time. Is this the veiled prophet 1830s? Have I got the years right on this? 1885. He did it. That's what Count Basie's saying. That guy did it. Oh, it's that carnival. Everybody wants to go to a carnival, sleigh bat carnival. Who needs it? We'll start the carnival and take it to New Orleans. There's one. Well, Ku Klux Klan, they're welcome to their parades. The initial Veiled Prophet parade, giant figure on a horse-drawn cart, fancy. Look what we found, all those. This is all fake history, but some of it happened, and then they, covered up that it was white man world. Women didn't care. They just wanted to be happy. We live in white man world, and I'll take 2 of these, 3 of that. Can I have one of those? I was going to study this guy in Spanish class. This jumped out at me. At school, this guy, Vargas here, the guy that kind of looks like Peter Sellers, was the subject of hostility by his fellow cadets, taunted with the nickname Zuzu or Chate for his height. Hey, little guy, 5'2", and round shape. Hey, you're short and fat. Vargas and his elder brothers were forced out of school after Vargas's brother, Reto, with the aid of his another brother, Protasio, shot fellow cadet Charlie Prado to death. They only were kicked out of school. Who is this guy? I was wondering. He grew up to be this guy. Wow. One of the longest guys, the president of Peru, who had one of those unfortunate suicides in 1954. While he was in office, no less. Crazy, always controversial. Isn't it funny? Shana na. Hey. So Jimi Hendrix recommended them. You know, along with those other. It was 1969 and they were already looking back to the 50s for that's when things were cool. Let's go to the hop. And it just seems what they would have called then gay. That's like one of the first blacks on TV. I don't want to get too much of the copyright, but you know, they did one song. They didn't have a record. Within 10 years, they had their own cartoon TV show. They were touring. Bruce Springsteen was open with them in 1972. He opened for Sha Na Na. Oh, baby. Weird, right? Sha Na Na. Anything you look is, I mean, let's hit the videos. Sha Na Na at Woodstock. Okay. Breakfast every day. That looks like it's going to be an extended song. At the hop, at the hop, at the hop. Extended song. Go. All right. Well, that's suspicious. They don't show any movement, only get a job. And at the hop is get a job. Let's go to the hop. No, get a job. At the hop, at the hop. Book of Love. There's one. They did a set.
Oh, I wonder, wonder who wrote the book of love? Tell me, tell me, tell me, oh, who wrote the book of love?
Wow. Are we on to something here? Did something weird happen? We're almost to the Gemstone file. Sha-na-na to Sha-na-na. Doo-wop revival group in 69. Looking back to Let's Go to the Hop, looking back, what, 15 years, maybe at the most? The William Morris Agency. This is a fairly long, weird looking 4 X's. No, an M and a W overlaid. Famous, the most famous, the first ever Jewish German immigrant to start a company to get businesses for vaudevillians who wanted workers. I need an act today, right now. I got to send my boy right over. They ended up being in charge of the first and the biggest. We're the star makers. Sign with us. I'm sure there were some shenanigans going on, but everything is a plan. Everything is a plan. It seemed strange to me that I didn't hear about the gemstone file until earlier this year. Well, thank you, Chris. I'm glad to see you. And don't be afraid, you guys, to put something into the comments. I should have known about it. But I looked it up and it came into my mind. What's the gemstone? When did people start talking about it? I searched it. Let's. Does it get a lot of things if you just searched the Microsoft Bing for the gemstone file? It doesn't list, doesn't it? Isn't it supposed to tell you how many things it searched out of? Notorious rant in the history of conspiracy theories. 24-page chronology known as the skeleton key. We'll look at that and the girl who wrote it. Turns out that it was something to do over a man's revenge because Howard Hughes stole his patent for synthetic rubies. David Hatcher Childers, he touched on it in 2023. So I'm thinking that was the breakthrough. They get those things. Now this book is out. How long has this book been out? Is that the book? Nope, this is Ken Thomas and Jim Keith. Unavailable, on the back order. Unavailable. Mind Control World, that's on the back order also. Anyway, it looks like about 2 years ago, the gemstone file came out. Control Alt History brought it out 9 months ago, got 37 views. Looks like the first time it popped up online was about 2 years ago. So this had to be one of the first artificial intelligence. Hey, the people need to know about this. It's time to release this psyop. Well, here you go. I showed that thing.
In 60, the gemstone file uncovers a dangerous game of power and deceit. The synthetic rubies, the gemstones, stolen from Bruce Roberts, form the basis for groundbreaking military technology. Roberts' international intelligence network, built on the exchange of gemstones for information.
Well, what? That guy that did Ghislaine Maxwell thing? Her dad? What did he say?
Of Pig's invasion. a scheme destined for disaster. Meanwhile, in the political battlefield between Kennedy and Nixon, Onassis is the puppeteer pulling strings, ensuring his victory regardless of the election's outcome. As the era of JFK begins in 1960, the Gemstone file uncovers a dangerous game of power and deceit. The synthetic rubies, the gemstones, stolen from Bruce Roberts, form the basis for groundbreaking military technology. Roberts' international intelligence network, built on the exchange of gemstones for information, exposes the Onassis-Hughes connection and a myriad of dark secrets. The sons of Joseph Kennedy, now free from their father's control following his stroke, dare to defy Onassis.
Oh, so this is the computer thing.
Across the globe, from the Golden Triangle to San Francisco, controlled by the mafia. The bodies of fallen American GIs used as vessels for drug trafficking, plates filled with heroin shipped in the guise of fine china.
They release these things so that people, like control alt history will go, well, I'll make a live version of it and get 38,000 views in 7 months. That's enough of this computer. Is this computer generated? No.
It involves JFK. It's not just his assassination though. This is the Gemstone files. Now, the Gemstone file is the granddaddy of the Meta conspiracy. Now, it redefines 20th century history as a vast plot to take over America. Now, along with the way its tentacles pull in everyone from JFK to Howard Hughes to Aristotle Onassis, who is the villain of the piece. Now, the impact of the Gemstone files on popular culture can be seen in movies and TV shows from JFK by Oliver Stone to The X-Files. The X-Files, by the way, is the best show ever. Now, Gemstone file first surfaced in the Bay Area of San Francisco in 1960 to various parties. One recipient was Californian conspiracy researcher Mae Brussel, who had just made a minor name for herself researching the Kennedy assassination. Now, although Brussel dismissed Roberts as a crank, she let freelance journalist Stephanie Karuna use the Gemstone file for articles in Playgirl and other publications in 1974. Now, Karuna, much impressed by the Gemstone file and Roberts himself, determined to summarise Roberts' investigation. Now, she wrote pamphlets called A Skeleton Key to the Gemstone File and issued 24 photocopies of it, which was passed around campuses of California. Now, on the last page, it said, "At present, there's the only way to spread this information. Here in America, it is hand to hand. Your help is needed. Please make 1, 5, 10, 100 copies, whatever you can, and give them."
So that's why I wrote down before I went to classes today, was this the last grassroots movement?
By which JFK and RFK were removed from the American political scene. After JFK's assassination, Onassis took Jackie Kennedy to be his trophy wife. Now, intriguingly, Roberts and Karuna proposed that Lee Harvey Oswald was the patsy in the JFK shooting and that the real killers were Jimmy Fratiano, Johnny Roselli and Eugene Brading, all of whom had links with the mafia. As for the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the key proposed that Sirhan's shots went wild, and the actual executioner was Thane Cesar, who was loaned for the occasion by Onassis to act as Robert Kennedy's guard. Now, Cesar was right behind Robert Kennedy when he...
So this is, how it came out 7 months ago. When you look up the Gemstone files on, I showed the Control Alt history. Now look at this. When did he start? He's been Ian Carroll. He's big now, man. He's big. He started not too long ago, 87 videos. Some of his older videos, they 2 years ago, 13,000, 6,000, 4,000. Now recently, well, that's a big one. Big for a year. I think a lot of these are getting traction now, 11 months ago. So a year ago, he took off. He did 2 videos on the Gemstone files. I have it listed under popular. They're fairly popular, I would say. This is kind of Gemstone era, Gemstone file, inspired by it, JFK. Here's the short version.
The Gemstone File has been called the most incredible conspiracy theory of all time and one of the most explosive documents ever published. It's a 17-page document from the mid-1970s that was written by a man named Bruce Roberts, who claimed he was majorly connected to a group of rich, powerful people who ran the world. Because of these connections, he knew the true story behind the murders of JFK and Robert Kennedy, the Watergate break-in, and almost every other major event.
This guy could be real, you know?
Ever. If you look at his Wikipedia page, the list of A-list actresses he dated is so long it takes up 3 lines. He was everywhere during this era, and then he vanished off the face of the earth in 1957, and no one saw him for 2 decades. He went from appearing everywhere to never once appearing in public, went from dating almost every major actress in Hollywood to never dating again. When he officially died in 1976, he hadn't appeared in public since 1957, and the most recent photos anyone could find of him were 20 years old. It was said that he simply went crazy, locked himself away.
Isn't that crazy? I think this story is crazy.
To an audience of 7 selected journalists in a conference room at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Los Angeles.
What's in it, but I mean, this episode is just so fantastic that it taxes your imagination to believe that a thing like this could happen.
I understand he got paid $300,000 advance for the book.
That's what I've been told, and that's what we're trying to run down, because that's the one thing that I don't understand here. In other words, there's got to be a bank record somewhere of this transaction.
It's hard to explain how popular, you know, the name of even being a Hughes, my last name Hughes, it was absolutely crazy when you did it. Like, oh, give me some money whenever you introduced yourself. It was always the same. And I kind of do recommend this guy. So it was about 7 or 8 months ago. He came out with like 3 hours. And I'm going to stick with it here. The Cotton Club murders. So here's the 1 hour and 57-minute version. The disappearance of Howard Hughes. I'm going to pop this one open, save it, hit this one, go with it.
Okay, so this will be a video on the disappearance of Howard Hughes, which is just the strangest, most...
You kind of got the idea. I want to get ahead to where it shows that even the people that claim that they're running the richest man in the world, that had the telecommunications, nobody sees them except 6 Mormon people, and they communicate through his lawyer.
Every casino in sight. He eventually became the biggest landowner in all of Nevada, and it's just always been a very bizarre, almost like unexplicable thing that happened, because he, didn't have any sort of background or anything owning casinos. Las Vegas at the time was probably the most corrupt place in the world. I mean, it was just mob city. There were gangsters everywhere. They all controlled and owned all these casinos. And at the time, Howard Hughes was like 61. So it seems like a pretty odd thing. You have unfathomable amounts of money. You can do whatever.
He used to do everything. So you're kind of dragging this out, man. Go.
And airplane parts. So it's certainly an interesting thing. If you're an international weapons smuggler, you probably know a lot of pretty shady characters. And you got to think that, there's definitely kind of way more to his story.
Yeah, nobody gets that rich. I mean, this guy, right? Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes file that I store in my safe. And it's like, oh, what is this Howard Hughes file? What does it contain? And he had this quote at the bottom here about this Howard Hughes file that he has. He says, I'll go to the can for life rather than surrender those documents. So you can only imagine what this Howard Hughes file that Hank Greenspan had, what this could possibly be, why this could be so important that he would say, I'll go to the can for the rest of my life.
Isn't that kind of what President Trump is doing now?
$10 for this station. Is that a good price?
Well, I was very satisfied. I don't know if he can get the return on his money, but I was happy. In fact, I sold him a golf course also.
Just like
Paradise
that.
Valley.
Just like that, a golf course.
He gave me a good price, about $2.6 million.
Hank, tell us what life was like up in that top floor of the Desert Inn. How did it work out? Did Hughes live in one room and the secretaries in another?
No, the secretaries lived on the 9th floor, on the 8th floor. The whole 9th floor was reserved for Hughes, and he pretty well roamed around the 9th floor. But after a while, it got to a point where he would never leave this little apartment of his, which was just 2 bedrooms and a living room and a center, which was double as a sort of an office.
Did anybody else come into those rooms?
Well, once in a while, if it was very urgent, one of the secretaries would come in, but most of the time, they would hold up signs to him. So-and-so is on the phone. He just didn't want to get too close to anybody.
World, from Nicaragua to Panama to London to Canada. He eventually ended up in Mexico. And apparently there was some sort of dying, decaying old man who was there with the Mormon Mafia team.
It's only beginning to get
Got
weird.
into the Vietnam War and kind of portrayed it as just a big mistake. And what Gemstone is saying is that was done on purpose to kind of distract people and, keep them busy looking into something like this, as opposed to looking into the drug trade and everything that was going on with that during the war. And so this is where we start getting into Watergate. And I think I'm just going to kind of scroll through these entries and not go into too much detail. I'll be honest.
We'll get back to
Coincidence, it was supposed to be
39.
like a mafia type triple execution. There's some significance
You need to know why.
to that. And, it's pretty remarkable that that is indeed the case. And another thing that Gemstone talks about in this entry is that Jackie Kennedy was on Aristotle Onassis's yacht at the time. So she was, and this did happen, and it's very strange, especially in light of some of the things that happen later on with the Gemstone file that we'll get into. But Jackie Kennedy did visit Greece for a 2-week rest in October, right there, that article. And so she was on.
Let's see, September, October, November 22nd, her husband is shot, allegedly by Lee Harvey Oswald. And within 2 years, she's married to Aristotle Onassis, and he poses pictures. He sells pictures of her posing nude because he hates her, and then he divorces her after he embarrasses her. What in the world?
On Aristotle Onassis's yacht at the time that this assassination was supposed to go down, and there's some really weird stuff about this. So basically, what happened was Jackie Kennedy, the first lady, visited Greece and was on Aristotle Onassis's yacht, and then right there in the upper right-hand corner, what happened was the yacht got lost. Nobody knew where it was.
Sure,
Nobody knew where
it
the first
did.
lady was. And so the whereabouts of the luxury yacht Christina carrying Mrs. John F. Kennedy on a vacation cruise remained a mystery. So no one had any idea where the first lady was around this time.
She's safe. She's on the boat with a James Bond villain.
And it's almost like unfathomable to think that there wasn't like a secret Secret Service protection or anything like that following her, or some sort of security.
Yeah, man, we get it. That's weird.
Without truly knowing what was going on. I just don't see how someone could just blindly make all this stuff up off the top of their head. And the interesting thing here also is that John Rosselli was scheduled to testify in a reinvestigation into the JFK murder in 1976. And again, he's the guy who Gemstone fingers as the man responsible for killing JFK.
Yikes. And they were taking donations to help pay for swine flu, the precursor to, you know, COVID. Jumping ahead. Look at this.
Angeles District Attorney covered it up, including the squawks of LA Coroner Thomas Noguchi. Younger was rewarded with the post of California Attorney General later. His son Eric Younger got a second-generation mafia reward, a judgeship at age 30. See Ted Chirac, LA author and director, The Second Gun, a documentary film on the RFK murder, bought and suppressed by Warner Brothers for more details. Teddy Kennedy knew who did it. He ran to Onassis afraid for his life and swore eternal obedience. In return, Onassis granted him his life and said he could be president too, just like his big brother, if he would just behave himself and follow orders. So Gemstone identifies this guy, Thane Caesar, as the person who actually killed Robert Kennedy, not Sirhan Sirhan. And it's interesting because, you know, just fairly recently, actually, Robert Kennedy Jr. identified this Thane Caesar person.
What I'm saying, the reason I'm showing this, not for money or anything else for copyrights, I'm showing this to say that this is how they release a psyop. I'm not saying this young man from Control Alt History or his powerful friends could help but being used, because this is interesting. We talked about the flat earth, and we didn't know it was going to lead to Adam and Eve and Nephilim's clowns and Book of Enoch, but we're glad we know, you know, we were showing the truth. There's something to this. These guys did it, and then he gets the bride
as the person he believes killed his father. And again, Gemstone was written, you know, all the way back in the mid-70s, only just a few years after Robert Kennedy was killed. And so, you know, the fact that Gemstone identified Thane Caesar as the killer so long ago is pretty interesting. And then, you know, if you look at the evidence, there was kind of all this talk at the time, especially from the coroner, his name is Thomas Noguchi, about the fact that there was a second gunman. The autopsy indicated that there was a second person who fired bullets, and it couldn't have just been Sirhan Sirhan. And then it's also interesting that this guy, Thane Caesar, has some interesting connections to some of the people we've been talking about. So in this book on the top, this author, Lisa Peace, wrote that Caesar previously worked for Robert Mayhew in Los Angeles. So Caesar has a connection to Bob Mayhew, who was controlling this Howard Hughes empire. And then it's also interesting because right after this assassination happened, according to this book, Caesar was hired by Hughes Aircraft. So again, another connection to Howard Hughes, almost like this, you know, could have been like some sort of payoff after the assassination happened. I just found out about this book, and so I haven't had a chance to read it, but I wanted to just include this. This book came out 10 years ago or so, but apparently it's a pretty good book, and it identifies Aristotle Onassis.
Look at that happy bride. Look at that happy bride.
Forced to, due to this old mafia code that if someone screws you on a deal, you kill him and you take his girl. Personally, I've never heard of this mafia code. Maybe it is a thing, and people like in the know have actually
remember the young man who saluted the flag when his dad went by in his coffin? That's this guy at his mom's wedding. That's the girl Caroline. Remember Neil Diamond wrote a song about her? He saw Sweet Caroline.
of it. But definitely this claim that, Jackie Kennedy was basically forced to marry Aristotle Onassis is, definitely hard to believe. At any rate, it is a strange marriage. You do have to admit that. Jackie Kennedy was only 39. She was young, absolutely gorgeous, very rich herself. She was very well off and probably considered like one of the most desirable bachelorettes in the world.
I thought she was a tranny. Go with the mafia stuff. Tooney's daughter stuck into a music. They did that with some of the Kennedys. She's crazy. Get her stuck on heroin, move her to the
Killing her
jail.
husband and going to an insane asylum. And so this is just a slide, a gemstone recap of what they say, who kind of was involved in the cover-up and how they helped cover up the Chappaquiddick thing. I won't get into that. I won't read this. You can pause the screen if you want to read
So
it.
this is about when Ted Kennedy killed the girl that heard a call. He killed her in Chappaquiddick. Can you see all that? The Cardinal Cushing. They didn't even have to relate it for a long time.
And also the designated custodian for JFK's brains after Dallas. The brains have since disappeared. So this guy, Burke Marshall, is who kind of represented, he was a lawyer, and he kind of represented Ted Kennedy in this. And this is true that he was in charge of safekeeping JFK's brain after he'd been assassinated, and it just went missing. And still to this day, it's like a mystery. No one really knows what happened to JFK's brain. So continuing on with Chappaquiddick, John Tenney's sister, Joan, heard her brother's end of the phone call made from her house in Tiburon to the Chappaquiddick cottage. The next day after Mary Jo died, Joan ran away to Norway, where she was kidnapped by mafia hoods Mari and Adamo. They locked her up in a Marcellus heroin factory for 60 days where heroin fumes turned her into a junkie. No needle marks. Then they turned her loose outside the factory. Joan's husband complained, so she chopped his head off with an axe and was subsequently locked up in a nut house belonging to the Marquise of Blandford, then Tina Lovano Onassis' husband. Mari and Adamo got pressed into scrap metal in a New Jersey auto junkyard.
Well, how is he supposed to learn a lesson if you pressed him into scrap?
Ill. Clifford Irving, author of Hoax about an art forger, became interested in Hughes. Living on Ibiza, he heard the Mediterranean gossip that Hughes was a hoax too. He went to Hughes' so-called Mormon Mafia, the 6 nursemaids, for information. One of them, Merriman, perhaps tired of the game, gave Irving the computerized Hughes biography. And from it, Irving wrote his own autobiography. So this is yet another...
I lived through this. This is real. People were teasing me. They thought everybody named Hughes had money.
And on the ITT board of directors, Tom Pappas, and a South Vietnamese cardinal named Thuc. Onassis allowed some pictures to be taken from a distance. He himself did not appear. The pictures were published in Midnight, a Canadian tabloid. And we've showed these pictures previously, but these pictures were snapped by a tourist whose tour boat was passing Scorpios, and there was this really old...
Can you believe that? He lives on an island named Scorpios. This is Ian Fleming writing the books of James Bond like they wrote Star Wars in the Cloud City. Well, that's Leadville, Colorado with its rare, what were they searching for? Elements. Well, they got them. It's the mob.
It would have been one of the most damaging testimonies at the hearings, and she was murdered. But Gemstone claims she actually heard the 18 and a half. There's like a copy of the tape, the portion of the tape that was released. She heard it, and she was murdered for that. I think she had a heart attack at age 40, so a little suspicious. And then this is 4 people who died in January 1973. So Lyndon Johnson, sodium morphate heart attack at his ranch.
You know that the United States had a Supreme Court judge found at Skinwalker Ranch in Texas with a pillow over his head. And they told us on Fox News, nothing to see here. So we went, oh, man, good. I thought that was I thought it'd be something weird, but no, I'm glad there's nothing to see there.
Or from the Bahamas. And eventually this was just called off. They didn't even try to do it. And, you know, the evidence seems to indicate that there was no Howard Hughes at this time, and that's what Gemstone claims too. So losing his son Alexander took all the fun out of killing for Onassis, who was there to inherit the world empire he had dreamed of handing over to his son. So Aristotle Onassis' son Alexander, he was only in like his 20s. He was pretty young. He died around this time. Plane crash. Gemstone claims that the plane was messed with. But this is one of the last entries on Onassis here. So in December 1974, Brezhnev had scheduled a meeting with Sadat of
It just, the weirdness never stops. The disappearance of Howard Hughes, uncovering Gemstone. There's the one. Now, there was one other thing I thought that you needed to see, besides the talent agencies, how the modern ones are all hooked together with the William Morris agency. But you know what's real, and you know it's time, to sit down with your loved ones and say, is this really going to happen? The Charlie Kirk thing, that's still a big deal. We talked about it the first couple of days, and it seemed obvious. And now they're playing it out. While the economy goes bad, everybody is learning more and more about how corrupt we are. But there's still going to be the wide road, dyeing their hair purple, green, pink, getting a new tattoo, thinking they're doing everything right. Oh no, what are the Hillary Clinton doing? Now, there is this the other thing, and everybody knows who Jimmy Dore is. He's one of the neoconservatives that's mad at the jab and was mad at the left because now they're all pro-war like Trump. But he does, they leak the news. It's out there. So check this out. Here's what I mentioned earlier about the girl, and we'll wrap it up with.
You're going to see, here she comes. There comes the DC cop planting the bomb. She's going to throw a hand signal to the cops. Watch her hand. There you go. Hand goes up, throws a signal. Planting the bomb. She's going to throw a hand signal to the cops. Watch her hand. There you go. Hand goes up, throws a signal.
I'm on my way.
Throws a signal. Days after January 6th, according to the Blaze News investigation. Oh, yeah. So it's a lady planting the bomb. Now, there's a girl boss.
Makes
Am
me
I
so
right?
proud.
That's a girl's boss. Not only is she a cop, she's also a terrorist and a federal agent. You go, girl. Former FBI Special Agent Kyle Seraphin realized Friday that he was doing surveillance next door to the woman now suspected of being the January 6th pipe bomber. The FBI put us one door away from the pipe bomber within days of January 6th, and we were deliberately pulled away for no logical or logically investigative reason, Seraphin told Blaze News on Friday. And everything about that tells me that they were involved in a cover-up and have been since day one. They were
Blaze News, anyone? That's their way of leaking it to Blaze News. Had this for 2 days, and now everybody knows it. It's that Mormon, charismatic Protestant Christian, Mormon, charismatic, Roman Catholic, Jesuit, Jewish Noahide laws can be merged with them. The president's closest advisors, his Christian base, charismatic, and that's not, that was never been considered the normal Christianity, man.
For effing in on it, Seraphin says. Woo. Woo.
Show
He's
me
a
the proof.
former special agent, FBI special agent. He says they were effing in on it.
They're all in on it, Jimmy.
Do you feel like and Trump is now meeting with the head of Al Qaeda from Syria today, welcoming him to the White House? Do you feel like a Trump yet? As Kurt says, everything's a psyop. The whole freaking culture's a psyop.
Everything. Show the video.
And apparently that's her too. Right? Is that what that is? So the mystery of the pipe bomb has hung over January 6th for 5 years. The FBI said an unknown subject placed pipe bombs under a park bench at the DNC and the Capitol Hill Club near the Republican National Committee building between 7:54 and 8:16 p.m. the night before January 6th riot. Discovery of the devices between 12:40 and 1:05 p.m. respectively on January 6th drew already depleted police resources away from the Capitol, just as a huge crowd breached the grounds at 12:53 p.m. A joint session of Congress convened at 1 p.m. to take up challenges to the certification of the Electoral College vote from 2020 presidential election. Kirchhoff was a Capitol police officer from 2018 until mid-2021. I released
Either walk.
higher quality footage of the pipe bomb suspect. No kidding. FBI releases new video of suspect planting the fake bombs on the eve of January 6th. I wonder why. Oh, because they got caught? Because they got caught. So I guess here's the new.
You're watching previously unreleased video of the mysterious person who planted pipe bombs outside the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees in Washington, D.C. a day before the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. The FBI is releasing the footage and more information in hopes of generating new tips for the pipe bomb investigation.
Wow, that. Why would you get the girl that limps that much? I didn't really notice it, but once I could see how a gate walking machine judge would find her like, hey, you did it.
Riot at the U.S. Capitol. The FBI is releasing the footage and more information in hopes of generating new tips for the pipe bomb investigation. Authorities previously offered a reward of up to $500,000 for information leading to the suspect's arrest and conviction. Investigators estimate the unidentified suspect to be about 5 feet 7 inches tall. The most distinctive part of the suspect's outfit are a pair of black and gray Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes with a yellow logo. The FBI says fewer than 25,000 pairs of the same shoe were sold between August 2018 and January 2021. The pipe bombs were discovered about 17 hours after they were planted. Fortunately, nobody was hurt before the bombs were rendered safe, but the FBI says both devices could have been lethal.
Hey, look, they're all in on it. Before you get bored and all go away, I want you to remember what I was talking about earlier, that there's two ways $40 trillion debts disappear, and the mafias have time to plan for it. One way is the United States could sell a lot of oil, get that lithium up and running, become the envy of the world again. The other way is, I asked the rhetorical question, how many wheelbarrows full of Reichmark dollars, US dollars, would it take if you had high denomination dollars and said, oh, inflation got so bad? You think it's, and you saw billion-dollar coins in Kenya, million-dollar pesos a few years ago, Argentina much. Like it can't happen here. We're $40 trillion. What does a million have to do with a billion? It is It's not statistically significant. It has nothing to do. It doesn't dent a billion. A trillion is a billion doesn't dent a trillion unless 999,000 more billions is the end of the world. They're going to do this inflation thing. They're coming for their debt. This isn't going to get fixed. You had better sit your wife down and say, look, it doesn't look as if our pension and Roth IRA 5013CB will be paying off. We might have to make a run for the border. And when I say pack your bag, honey, pack your fucking bag. Because it's do or die time right now. Because this isn't a fix it upper. This is a run to the hills and try to play a game of be the last person they find because they're going to kill us all. Because we're not getting their jab. We're not playing their 6G, 7G game. When the cities burn, we're on our own. On a flat earth nation with its golden age past, knowing the mud flood was Armageddon. They added 1,000 years. You, me, we have orphan trained brains. We don't know if we've been genetically messed with, but we know we have souls. We know we've been saved by grace if we're on that narrow road and we have a first love to lose. We've been called, chosen, predestined, known from before the foundation of the earth to be adopted. And yet that means all of this predestination stuff means at one time we'll have said to ourselves, I should be praying right now. And I am. I'm believing in my heart that Jesus Christ is Lord. Nothing can stop me from that. And now I have to almost uncontrollably confess it with my mouth to somebody somewhere. Seemingly almost all of the time at first. That's all we want is you to realize don't lose that first love. You're saved by grace. You're going to be judged by the talent God gave you, the soil he planted your seed in. The wheat has 30, 60, 90, and 100-fold. 100-fold, 90-fold Christians do not kick ass on the 30 saying, why ain't you trying harder? If they're given one talent, they hide it, they're in trouble. They're given 2 talents and they use their 2 talents, they're rewarded with this double. Somebody that's going to be 100-fold, they're given 5 talents, you better not be handing in. I did 8 because I spent 2 of my talents kicking ass on that 30-year-old Christian that never learned. In case some of you wonder why I ignore you. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nachmade. Adios, amigos. It's how a real man likes to say goodbye.